there's not one of us, be us 10 years of age or 80 years of age, that don't understand how important mental health is now, and good mental health. And we've always done the good physical health is the most important thing, but they go hand in hand now, and the world needs to understand that.
Hey folks, there's a wonderful event happening next year over the June long weekend from June 7th to 9th. The Bali AFL Masters is taking place, and the SA team will have men's sides in the over 35s, over 45s and over 55s. If you want to join in the fun, check out the Southern Slugs Football Club Facebook page. Well, what a pleasure it is to have Sarah Game and also Chris McDermott, or Bone as you're better known, back from the footy days on Sports Legends with Bevo.
Thanks so much.
Good to see you, Bevo.
Good to have you guys too. And now next month we've got an event happening as part of International Men's Day. Tell us about it, Sarah. What's going on?
That's right. Well, my understanding is it's the only event happening to celebrate International Men's Day this November on Sunday the 19th. So I was inspired to do it by actually attending events for International Women's Day last year, and I realised that there was no equivalent celebration for International Men's Day. And so this year I decided that we'd do our own one at the Nord Football Club.
Wonderful. And you've obviously got Chris involved in as well. Tell us about your relationship with Bone and how you got him involved.
Yeah, well, I met Chris at, I knew nothing about Chris's AFL career, as we sort of discussed a little bit earlier. I'm not really a sports follower, but I met Chris at an event for children's mental health and learnt that he was involved in starting the Little Heroes Foundation, which I know Chris will talk about later. And that for me was our common ground. You know, I knew Chris was I could tell Chris was a good person who wants to make a contribution. That's what inspires me as well. And that's the motivation behind celebrating men on International Men's Day too. I mean, I've spoken in Parliament about men's issues, had a really positive reception. And so Chris was just sort of naturally the first person that I roped into the event, and he agreed immediately, which was wonderful. And that, I think, helped others get on board too, which I'm really appreciative of. But obviously we've got Jim Wally as well, a former fighter pilot in the Royal Australian Air Force, and we've got Professor Whittet from the University of Adelaide, a specialist in men's mental health, and also Will Frogley, CEO of Master Builders, and Zane Kirkwood from Breakthrough Mental Health Research Foundation. So it looks to be a really amazing event.
Yeah, some big names there for sure. And Bone, tell us about, must be pretty excited about being involved as well. And
yeah, look, it's great. I mean, Sarah and I got to meet each other. We were at KPMG, I think it was, with the mental health evening that we put on there. And some people you click with and you get a good feel about, and I'm very much a gut feeler, and we had some great things in common. So, I'm happy to help wherever I can. I think it's a really good event. The men's event's really important. Great to have it at Norwood Footy Club. Zane Kirkwood's been one we've been able to help get into the event, and his history in that mental health space. And, he's a kid that's had to overcome a lot of hurdles, and it's a great story at the end, but he'll really add to the day. 150, 180 people on a Sunday afternoon when most people are doing something else. So I think it's a really, really great result, and hopefully the start of something bigger, that this can be an annual event, that we can take it to bigger places and put on even more guest speakers and make it more beneficial for, I guess, the people that you're trying to inform, to help along the way. And I think there's not one of us, be us 10 years of age or 80 years of age, that don't understand how important mental health is now, and good mental health. And we've always done the good physical health is the most important thing, but they go hand in hand now, and the world needs to understand that.
Yeah, well said, especially with the whole COVID situation. That, there's been so many situations, hasn't there? People having mental health issues, and, the suicide rates and what have you have just increased dramatically over the years. So you're right, it's just never been so important. And Zane, you look at Zane and you think on the outside, such a happy, positive guy. I've had him before on Legends with Bevo. But yeah, you don't know. And that's a perfect example of what people are going through until they come out and talk about it.
Beautiful kid. I mean, a ripper kid who's got a real story to tell, and he's just got himself in a space where he can go and tell the story now, and tell it with confidence and not have repercussions from him telling his story. So he's learned to be able to embrace that with, John Mannion from Breakthrough Mental Health Research Foundation. Zane works there. So there's no better person in the mental health space than John Mannion. He's been in it for 38 years. So really good partnership. Zane's doing some great things, running the New York Marathon in the not too distant future as well. So,
oh, wow.
he's doing a lot, and I think it's a name that we're going to hear a lot about over the next 20 years.
No, well said, absolutely. And Sarah, you're obviously a politician for One Nation. Explain your role there and how you sort of got into politics and what you enjoy about it.
Well, I'm loving it. I guess I've always wanted to lead a meaningful life and make a contribution. I know that might not go hand in hand with politics in a lot of people's mind, but before politics, I was a teacher and I taught in really disadvantaged schools overseas, and I was also a veterinarian. So certainly that was always my motivation. And when I got this opportunity, I just saw it as a way of being able to expand my passion for various interests, so mental health and wellbeing, and also education. And I'm really enjoying it. I think you can't complain. It's a highly privileged job. Obviously, it has certain stresses, but when you look at what people are going through at the moment with the cost of living crisis, I certainly am grateful for my position and all the people that I'm getting to meet, like Chris, and to be able to actually do an event that's meaningful, like the International Men's Day. A lot of people want to do these things and would make these contributions if they could. And I'm lucky enough that I've got access now to people who help me do these things. So it's great.
And Chris, let's talk about your career as well.
No.
Let me find out about your career, Chris, that I know nothing about while we get together. I don't know anything about Chris's career.
I know, he's too modest. 14 state games, 227 games of the Bays playing league footy, and 117 games of the Crows. That's a pretty good resume, Bone.
Means I'm old.
Tell us about the journey, where it all began, and the lead up to playing for the Bays.
Oh, I'm an old Merino boy from 1963, so before Merino was the nice suburb it is now, and my folks built there when there was nobody there, so just happened to be in the Glenelg zone, and I was a mad Woodville supporter back in that day. My grandfather had played for Port Adelaide, and then when he'd finished his playing career at Port, went to Woodville and helped them move from the B grade that they were in the sort of early 60s into the A grade or the SANFL properly, and so took me along, and from 1968 is when I first remember being in my Woodville jumper and having a badge on and going into the change rooms and having access to that, and I was just a young kid that fell in love with the game at a really early age and managed to hold on to that love for 55 years. Not quite sure I'm in love with it these days as I was back then, and the game's changed a little bit. But look, I'm just a regular story like everybody else. Has just had a bit of footy in the background and in the family. Just wanted to play it and didn't want to do anything else. Wasn't really good at school. Sarah knows that. She knows my schoolwork and my ability to not pass year 12 was a bit of a handcuff on me for the next 30 years, but I just love the game, love what it taught me, love what it gave me, love the assets it gave me, the friends that it gave me, the doors that it opened for me, and what happens on the ground is all a bit of a blur 30 years later, but it's a profession that I couldn't recommend highly enough for anybody, male or female now, that want to play it.
And you're also the inaugural Crows skipper as well. That must have been pretty special.
Yeah, it was. It was I had an opportunity to go to Brisbane when the Bears had first started and stayed at Glenelg, that was sort of mid-80s, and had a couple of doors open to go to the VFL and play, but didn't really interest me when the Crows were flagged. It was something that did interest me, and to have a South Australian team in the AFL competition and be able to be in the first team and lead that team and give them some direction, and was an absolute highlight, and something I feel really privileged to be able to have done and to have contributed in a small way to that success. And the success for them came pretty quickly. 6 years in, and they've got a premiership to their name, which was a great story. But good fun times. Different era though. Non-professional. You work from 9 to 4 or 9 to 5. We trained from 5 till 7:30 or 8 o'clock. When we'd finish training, McGuinness and I would drive from West Lakes, Tony McGuinness that is, down to the Bay. We'd go to the barbecue inn on Jetty Road at Glenelg. We'd get there at 8:30. We'd be there till 10:30, go home, wake up, go to work the next day and press the repeat button and do it all again. So different times, but great fun, really good memories, and a lot of them we can't obviously say on tape.
And I have to talk about the Nigel Smart firewalking incident, because that was one that everyone knows about and an absolute classic back in the day. Sarah may not know this one, but...
Firewalking, you ever done it?
No, I know about it. I might have done it. I think I might have done it in Fiji. Is that right? This is if
Hot
it's
coals?
the same. Yeah, I think so.
Did you?
Yeah. I think I did.
Did you say ouch or did it not hurt?
It's a vague. I feel like so much has happened in my. It's a distant memory now. I think this was one of those distant childhood memories that may or may not happen. I feel like I was faced with the choice. Whether I went through with it, I don't know. But I'm interested in the story.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, you may never speak to me again, though, Nigel, if I do repeat it. But so I think it was the first year pre-season Crows camp, Rapid Bay, and Nigel had been on a plane with Graham Corns going somewhere either to and from Melbourne. So it might have been the second year. And Nigel was reading the in-flight magazine, firewalking. Flicks it to Graham, says, "Look at this. This would be great for us to do." Graham, of course, yeah, great idea, no worries. So we're in this quarry at Rapid Bay, and we're all. It's you can't really see it from the dormitories that we were staying in, and we're walking up and down these dormitories as a practice session for what we're about to go out and do, and it's on a blue carpet, very much like the carpet we're on here, and we've got to walk 22 metres, sort of stomp through it, and say cool sand, so your mind is saying it's cool even though it's bloody hot. And so we did this for about an hour, which was meant to prepare you for what is out there. So we walked the 100 metres around the corner to the hot coals on the gravelled surface, and there was this flame. I swear there were a flaming inferno. It was flames a couple of metres high. They hadn't quite doused them at this stage, and and said, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not walking on that. So the more we got, the more apprehensive we got, the less it was reflective of the cool sand and the carpet we were walking on. And because Nigel had found it, he volunteered to go first. So he started at one end. Oh. I was at the other end. So the idea was you walked the length of the cricket pitch pretty well, met another player at the other end who would grab you, say, well done, and off you go. Oh. Life was meant to be simple. So there's probably 52 players on the list, 52 standing around, officials, maybe 75 in total. Nigel starts, and I'm at the other end to catch him, 22 metres. And he starts, and I reckon he's 3 steps in, and his face went white. The cool sand went to bloody hell, this is hot. And then a rush to the end to me. So he rushed his way through.
That's crazy.
The trainers came from here, trainers came from there, officials came from here, Bill Sanders, Bob Hammond, Cornsey all came, hugged him, put his feet in a bucket of water, and there was pandemonium over it. So they rushed Nigel off, take him back to camp, get the doctors to look after him. The bloke who's running the whole thing is saying, no, it's okay, there's nothing wrong. And then he does it himself, good as gold, but it got shut down, so nobody else got a chance to do it.
I'm not surprised.
Well, the moral of the story was Nigel's feet weren't that bad, and while we had a trial game the next weekend, he didn't play, but he had a couple of small blisters on his feet.
I can just imagine.
There might have been just a bit of, sorry Nigel, a bit of panic on his behalf that sort of destroyed it for everybody, but it was one of our less gracious moments in the history of the Adelaide Footy Club.
Hey, but it's a memory to always look back on, isn't it? And everyone loves talking about it.
We did break arrows in our neck the following year, though, which was fantastic. So now this is something you can do. So you had to put the point of the arrow in your neck, proper arrow, so that long. Somebody had put their hands on the other end, and you had to walk towards the person and bend the arrow.
What?
And snap it.
Who comes up with these ideas?
I'm telling you.
Doesn't sound like fun to me.
I'm telling you, having done it, and I was lucky enough to be the first one to do it because Nigel wasn't going first after what happened last time. And it gets to this point where you think, I don't know about this, and whether I'm going to take the next step, because you know the next step is going to make it snap, but it also feels like the next step is going to make it pierce your skin.
Yeah.
And a couple of blokes did, nick a little and start to bleed a fraction. But it's a really, really great test of your mental capacity to push through that moment of doubt, snap it, and everybody did it. It was phenomenal. We played Hawthorn. Sorry, I'm hogging.
No, I just missed.
We played Hawthorn that next week. You might remember this at Amy Stadium. I don't think we'd kicked a goal to half time, or we might have kicked one, and they were up 5-10 to 1-4 or something. We were getting absolutely smashed. We all went into the rooms at half time, And there was this weird, calm, it's okay, no panic, where there's normally chaos and Cornsey yelling at us and, yeah, bloody hopeless you blokes and well, there's this real calm in there, like, it's okay, we haven't been good, but it's all right. And we went out and we won and kicked 10 goals to nothing in the last half. Great story. And that had a huge part in that win over Hawthorn. One of the great weeks and great moments in the Adelaide Footy Club.
That's amazing, isn't it? For doing something like, huge story. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not finished now. Sarah, back to you.
That links with mental health and so on, doesn't it? Because 100%. Having that belief in yourself and having that success and that confidence, isn't it? That's what you're talking about. Push on.
We could do it at your lunch.
You're going to do some arrow snapping.
Get the firecrackers out.
I'll get you up. We've been looking for a role. We haven't honed your role exactly, but I think the arrow snapping, we could start with that.
Maybe not. Maybe that needs a little bit more thought, I think.
Get everyone into the right, we can do it zone.
I'll hold that thought.
We'll ask a few stories about you later on anyway, Bo. We'll get back to your footy career, but move on to Sarah now. Let's get to the really important thing, and that is legacy, because that's a really important part of your life there and something that's close to your heart, and also where the funds are going for International Men's Day event next month. Explain more about this.
I am so excited to have Legacy as our charity for the International Men's Day. It's really meaningful. I mean, my dad, who unfortunately passed away in February this year, but he was in the Navy for 20 years. So certainly I had that experience of having my father in the Defence Force and being away. And it's a really challenging time for families. I mean, we were lucky, that we didn't suffer severe financial hardship. And certainly Legacy's there to support the whole family. So the parents and the children. Also, it's very dear to one of our speakers, Jim Wally, who lost his father at the age of 9. And he told me that it was Legacy that stepped in and allowed him really to carry on with his schooling and supported his mother. So it's really significant, and it makes me feel really grateful, actually, that we can help raise money for such a good charity.
Oh, fantastic. And speaking of charities, Bone, you're obviously involved with the McDermott Foundation and now, more recent times, Little Heroes. And why is that sort of foundation so close to your heart? And explain more the story behind Little Heroes.
Oh, look, it came from a relationship I had with a young boy, and Tony had one at the same time, Nicholas Berry, Nathan McLean, two young lads who had a form of cancer back in the 90s, were both footy fans and would come along to the footy. And Nath, the young lad that I was really friendly with, would come to the footy, come in the rooms after the game, just sit alongside me. And, I slowly saw his body change and had enough understanding of cancer and what it looked like and what it acted like to know that there was something not right with him, and met his mum and dad, and we became friends for a couple of years and went along his journey and saw how that affected him, his family, and saw the facilities at the Women's and Children's Hospital back in the 90s, which were, with all due respect, really substandard. If you had cancer or you had a serious illness, if you weren't in Melbourne or weren't in Sydney, you just didn't get the best of treatment. And over here, you'd have to wait 6 weeks if you wanted to have an MRI to see where the cancer was, to see what the doctors were dealing with. As a footballer at that stage, if I hurt my knee and need an MRI, I could get one within, the next day. I could go and have one, have the results back straight away, and just didn't seem fair to me. So the idea of McDermott Foundation and Tony and I was to bring our facilities here at Adelaide up with the rest of the country and surpass them if we could. And I think we were able to do that. We had 2 MRI machines. We built an endoscopic operating theatre in there. We put a new playground in there. We built a robotic rehabilitation centre in there as well. So all these things that other countries came over to see in the end, and we could brag about, and Adelaide could brag about their Women's and Children's Hospital, the facilities that they had there for their kids. So great success story. When we morphed into Little Heroes, we also morphed out of cancer and into mental health and physical health. And I'm sure Sarah's, as she just explained, the magnitude of mental health in the world now, and it covers everybody. So it was really important for us to diversify and have a physical health aspect and a mental health aspect to us. So in partnership with Breakthrough, we have Big Talks for Little People, and it's an in-schools program and teaches young children about mental health. We're going into the APY lands in the not too distant future in December, and speaking to some communities up there about having an Indigenous program as well. The program's also gone over into Turkey after their earthquakes in recent times, and the schools have adopted it over there, given the troubles that they're having. And we're also speaking to the education department in China about the possibility of morphing it into Mandarin and having it used over there. So through Flinders Uni, they're the brainchild behind it. Professor Philip Slee is an absolute genius, and we're lucky to be able to financially support it and get some kudos for it. But that mental health part is huge now, and I come from a non-believer in an old age where, you know, it wasn't spoken about, it wasn't a thing. Now it's a thing and a serious thing, and glad to be on that journey with them.
It must make you feel very proud knowing the success that you've had with obviously McGuinness McDermott Foundation and our Little Heroes as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the beauty is I get to meet people like Sarah that I'd never know and never meet, never walk in that world, and it's been a great experience for me. And Sarah puts up with me and me talking too much, and I buy her a coffee every now and then to try and square the ledger. But it's opened doors for me that would never have been open before. And, you know, I had my parents died from cancer when I was 15, 16. And so I had some history with it, some understanding of it, and to be able to do something for kids that maybe were in my spot 15 years ago or were affected by it, and families that were affected by it, yeah, it's a good reason to get up in the morning.
Yeah, most definitely. No, congratulations
so
on that.
isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
Definitely.
Yeah. And Sarah, let's sort of go back to yourself personally with your politics side of things. Where to from here for the rest of 2023 and going forward?
Well, there's probably a couple of things that I think, you know, are fitting to mention now, which I've had a really positive reception from government, actually, and I'm quite confident about getting some headway on. And one is getting better advertising for the Urgent Mental Health Care Centre. So there's an Urgent Mental Health Care Centre on Grenfell Street, which very few people know about. It's a 24/7 walk-in mental health facility. It's different than going to a hospital because when you go in there, you're met by a clinician, but also someone with lived experience. And it's much more a living room environment. You don't need a referral. You don't need any ID. You just walk in off the street, or, you know, if you have reached a point within yourself. And I think it's fitting, since we're talking about International Men's Day, particularly this sort of low barrier system is very appropriate for men who they're often not in the mental health care space, because when they have a crisis, it's been precipitated by a life event, you know, a relationship breakdown or a career change. And so I think they often find themselves not really knowing where to go and not already in a system to be referred on. The unfortunate thing is that they don't know about this centre. So last I checked, it was running at 60% capacity. And so I'm in talks with the government at the moment about having a targeted advertising campaign. So veteran groups, relationship mediation groups, job seeking agencies, so that we're making sure the people that need this centre are aware of this centre. So that's on my agenda. And I guess just tying in a little bit with Chris and his passion for children, I've got a bill that I'm talking with the government that has also had very positive reception in having a collaborative approach, which is making sure that we know that how are children in care, so our most vulnerable and disadvantaged children, how are they actually faring comparatively at school with other children, both in terms of their attendance, but also in terms of their academic achievement. So we don't know that currently. We've got it for certain years of NAPLAN, but we don't know ultimately how they're ending up. You wouldn't be able to say now, well, how did children in care go in year 10, 11 and 12 compared to other children? And I think that having that information available is the first step to changing the outcomes. So they're the top two probably on my agenda at the moment.
And obviously it's a sports podcast that we're on today, and you're not the biggest sport. You've certainly admitted before that you're not the biggest sporting person, but last year, and I know this event next month is going to be at the Nord Footy Club, and
that's right.
And that's obviously the club that you got involved with the last couple of years. And your very first game was the grand final last year, when Nord came from behind to beat the Roosters in what was an epic grand final, the Sanford grand final last year in 2022.
That's right. So I'm definitely making a commitment to try for my son. We spoke earlier. I've got 3 children, a son who's 8. And my daughter's 7 and 5, and my son is a sports fanatic. So I certainly feel now, as his mother, that I need to skill myself up, in what's going on. So we went along to that premiership game, and I think that's his expectation now, that all football games are like that. But we were hugely impressed, and as you know, Norwood were certainly trailing behind for most of that match, but they turned it around in the last few minutes. So it was really exciting. Yeah.
So going forward, we might see you become more of
Norwood. You'll find me down Norwood Football Club if you want to know where I am.
Yeah. I think it'd be fair to say we need to work on our football vernacular, though. The terminology is not quite right.
Not quite right. I've only been to one or two games.
Broaden that a little bit.
Yes.
We'll take it down to Glenelg over and get her educated.
Yeah, exactly. Especially, obviously, speaking of that, big premiership this year for the Bays, must it be?
Fantastic. Yeah, because we know we're not normally good that last day in September. It's normally when we less successful than successful, but great from, obviously got a really good environment down there at the moment. Peter Carey doing some great things off the field and on field, really got themselves organised. So fantastic to see. I mean, I think the footy world, especially at that level, with the emergence of the women's leagues, and I think, have a bit to do with the amateur leagues as well, is really, really strong at the moment. So great to see.
No, it's heading in the right direction for sure. And 14 state games as well you played. Obviously we don't have State of Origin, unfortunately, at that AFL level anymore, but what was it like playing against and with some of the best players of all time?
Yeah, I think it's one of the great tragedies that the game can't find space for that state-based competition, because I was lucky to play in the MCG 1993. Some of your listeners and watchers will remember, South Australia, Victoria, 30 years after they'd won in 63 at the MCG, to do it again, and with Brereton and Dunstall and Lockett and Ablett and those sort of blokes. Again, talk about great moments and moments that stick in a clouded brain. Definitely one of them. Great footy. But it was an era when you could bend the rules just a bit too, and that was always the fun part.
Yeah. And it was a brutal era of footy as well, mind you.
It was brutal. But, the beauty was, it was brutal, but, once you walk back over the white line, there was always a handshake, there was always a beer afterwards, and, it left and finished there, and I think the sport might have just lost that a little bit, but I think that was one of the great things, is that you could go to war with a bloke and leave nothing else, off the field, but you'd get there, have a beer afterwards, shake hands, and, life's back to normal again. So the ability for your character to be able to do that after you've both belted the, out of each other, I think is a great tool for us all that we don't have anymore. And Sarah talks about that mental health and how to deal with it. Well, what a great way we dealt with it back then, even though we didn't know we were dealing with it. I think that ability to do that after a game is really important, and they should think about reinstating it.
Yeah, I agree, absolutely. And before we let you go as well, you talked about a couple of funny stories during your career at the Crows. Who are some of the footy teammates that were, real funny teammates back in the day, and why? And have you got a couple of stories that you want to share? Were there some pranksters down at the clubs as well?
Well, in the early days, everyone was a prankster, because there was I think Grantley Filkey was one of the big ones, and that probably ducked under the radar a little bit, but Filks was great humour, great fun. Everybody knows about Jarman and his ability to A, make you laugh, and B, make the coaches cry a little bit. But, to have two blokes like that, I think we often forget. You look at those early years and you think about the players whose names come readily to mind, but it was often the second tier player that maybe ducked under the radar that made such a huge contribution to Scotty Lee, who was just a hard, tough, but really good fun bloke. We've spoken about the other two, but a Paul Rouvray and, a young Rod Jamieson coming through, a young Mark Bickley, and the fun we used to have at his expense. But then he becomes, the first premiership captain, but he was, the punching bag for all of us for a couple of years. So, I'm already enough trouble from Nigel, and now I'm in trouble from Filkey and Jarman. I don't want to alienate myself to any more of them, but, different era, different times, but, all part of what the Adelaide Footy Club's been able to become today.
And I think, I've played footy for 20 plus years, not at that level, but I think that's the best part, isn't it? Those friendships that you have and the fun that you have. And they're the things I miss the most about playing sport as well. Yeah,
it'd be interesting to see what Sarah says. Is politics the same? I mean, you've got a whole lot of people that are warring, but are you good enough to be able to shake hands at the end of the day and go and have a beer afterwards or a meal and not be at war and just enjoy each other's company? I mean, I think that was the beauty of the game, and we all understood it. Yeah, and again, it's a bygone era, and I understand that, but it was a great part of an old era that I think we forget and move on from too quickly.
It's a really good point, like your Labor versus Liberal. It's a bit like Port versus Crows, isn't it?
Does anybody play like that?
I think largely, look, I probably haven't been there long enough to really see how it's all going to pan out. But I would say that my experience is that we are able to do that. We are able to disagree strongly with each other, but still be respectful and certainly people have friendships, in different parties, and I couldn't complain. I think it's all been very civil so far. But that said, I think there's a place, as you said, for that real passion and belief. And when your passion and belief is different to somebody else's, that should shine through too.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Before we let you both go, once again, plug next month's event, Sarah. Where's it happening and how can people buy tickets?
Exactly. So we can look up trybooking.com and search International Men's Day, or I know that Legacy have also got a link now to buy tickets. It's on November 19th on a Sunday, International Men's Day. So we're obviously going to be having some amazing speakers, and I want it to be a really positive celebratory event. It is almost sold out, so I would suggest people buy their tickets soon if they're interested in coming.
Fabulous. Well, thanks so much to Chris McDermott and also Sarah Gain for joining us today on Sports Legends with Bevo.
Good on you, Bevo.
Thanks so much.